Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Be There in Five podcast. I'm Kate Kennedy, your host. Excited to be here for a very overdue Katelilah, which is where I answer listener voicemails and now texts because I do feel like sometimes people want to be anonymous. You just have to trust me that I'm not making up these texts. Like, hey, girl, why are you so cool and popular and interesting? Tell me your secret. But no, the texts are fun. And Courtney will often sort through them and send them to me so I can kind of like be surprised. Occasionally I'll check them myself. So if I do respond to you at some point, it actually is me. But you know me, I get a little scared of people trolling. Anyway, I think this should be really fun because we have kind of like a very random assortment that came across my desk in recent months. And the more obscure the question, the better. And I love when they're like, kind of pop culture related, but it's more about like the culture of like being a person and talking about things like, power ranking critters on polos in terms of who had the most desirable, respectable status symbol, like social capital giving element of a teeny mascot you wore on your left chest when I would stack multiple polos until I looked like a literal human square because they're so deeply unflattering on my figure. And the only way I could afford them in high school was to buy the little boys extra large, like husky ones at Steinmart. It wasn't my best look when I was actively wearing things that didn't fit in order to fit in, and I was effectively hulking out of the seams of the arms. But what are you going to do? That's what we were doing at the time. We were also wearing ribbon belts and jean skirts and Sperry topsiders that had never seen a boat deck, only the squeaky halls of a suburban high school. And it was a great time. I like looking back on those eras of fashion that were kind of deeply unflattering. Like I've written about the Gaucho pan and spoken about proudly. I really do think some things were not meant for the male gaze, and they truly are ours. Because absolutely nobody would put those two giant windsocks on their thighs and call it sex appeal. To me, gauchos are like not measuring curtains right and putting them on your thighs, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Regardless, what was I saying? I'm trying to think of what's new with me. Oh, I'm wearing belts now. So, sure you were interested in that. But like, why don't I wear belts more? They really make a lot of sense. I put one on with kind of like a knit vest and a slightly cropped number, and I felt like Rachel Green, mostly because I got my hair done. As you guys were on my mousy hair journey. I don't know if any of you guys feel this way, but the one of the things that makes me question my life, my future, everything about myself and my face is sitting there ever so vulnerably in a black, over the shoulder cape that without a muff, you don't really look chic like a Samantha Parkington in a cape. You just kind of look like you bought something at Spirit Halloween. When you're sitting in that hair chair with the polyester cape and the foils on your head, you look up at the mirror and you study your facial features. I'm like, how have I made it this far in life being objectively hideous? The way I look at myself in those moments, and I texted Courtney telling her that I feared I had a similar jawline to Kendra from Unknown Number, the most harrowing Netflix documentary I've seen in years. That watching it felt like a psychological thriller because I didn't know the story and I didn't know who was sending the mean texts. When I tell you I was horrified, I'm still thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about it. I feel like we glossed over so many things about what was glaringly happening in terms of this person being an obvious sexual predator. And the smoking gun was them bullying Owen's new girlfriend and it had nothing to do with Lauren. I'm trying to speak vaguely so I don't spoil it for you. But if you know, you know. How is somebody in jail for cyber stalking and cyber bullying able to cyber contact their victim and love bomb them digitally while in jail? I mean, there's so many questions, so few answers. I fear we kind of gave the perpetrator somewhat of a platform to delusionally think we would just think she's kind of silly, a silly goose that made a mistake like the rest of us. She's like, we all make mistakes. I was like, we don't all make those mistakes. 750 pages worth of text mistakes. Sure, people like me and you listening, we might roll a stop sign, put a Sprite in a water cup at a Chipotle if we're feeling dangerous. But we don't tell people to kill themselves via text that are our nearest and dearest and bully and harass them and mine their insecurities for the better part of 2 years to the point where it absolutely decimates a group of youth's high school experience in irreparable ways. And you deserve prison, but you hardly got time. Anyway, if you want to hear more about my thoughts on Unknown Number, the Netflix documentary about the high school catfish, that's at patreon.com/be there in five. And when I say a bonus episode or a recap, it's more just me yelling into the mic for 30 minutes after I watched it because I was so frustrated and I found it so upsetting. But other than that, I didn't have an episode last week, but if since season two, I've done 3 episodes per month. And beyond that, I do 2 bonus episodes on Patreon. So I do 5 episodes, give or take, because I want to make sure you're fed, of course. But I have to work on some other stuff too in the background. So it's been super helpful for me to be on the schedule. I like to say it's a branding choice given the Be There and Five of it all that you just really don't know when we're going to show up. But the reality also is that like I'm kind of a one man show as it relates to putting on this show. And Courtney is the one who monetizes and brokers it and manages the back end. We have a lovely person named Katie who helps me do the treatment to put the videos on YouTube because that's like what you have to do now. Even though doing this on camera is somewhat of a nightmare for me, given it's a very similar situation to the foils. It's like nobody should ever look at their face that much. It's upsetting. So shout out to Katie and Courtney, part of Team BTI 5. And you guys are awesome for being so patient and supportive. I feel like it's been a while since we've kind of shot the shit personally. I did go on vacation, which was amazing. And a lot of you followed along on Insta because I think you were as mesmerized by this location as I was. Because if you're not from the Midwest or like super familiar with Michigan, I don't know that this is as on everyone's radar because it certainly was not on mine. But the way I just loved it so much and want to tell people to go, I went to Mackinac Island in northern Michigan. It was the perfect type of vacation for me in that I feel very passionately toward resorts, hotels that are luxury experiences for adults that embrace kids where kids can be around. And that was the Grand Hotel. It can be very expensive, but they also have a lot of packages because it's so large. The fact that I got a deal for Labor Day weekend was pretty exciting. But I had some good friends that had gone and taken their kids. Shout out to Tori, shout out to Haley, who like walked me through the whole thing because the thing about Mackinac Island is there are no cars. You cannot have cars. They do not allow cars. You get around by horse and buggy. And trust me, I had a lot of questions about horse welfare and thought about it the whole time. And I think that the horses have sad eyes? Yeah, and it's upsetting. That's the part of it that like is the most charming for a lot of people that I found like kind of the toughest was like I think horses are just so beautiful and majestic, but and I worry. They told me that they work like 4 to 6 hour shifts and they have 2 or 3 hours off, then they would work another 4 hours, and they get 2 days off, and then they only work like 3 months out of the year. They only go to the mainland and run free most of the year, and that they're like I don't know a lot about horse breeding. I'm sure that'll come as a surprise to you, but like they're bred to like be workhorses and to do, I don't know. They're probably just telling me what I wanted to hear to make me feel less bad about the whole operation. And I know people have a lot of thoughts on horse carriages, but it's like funny to me that it's theoretically romantic because I used to always see people doing them in like Central Park and stuff. But I lived in New York and thought it was so funny because it just looked kind of gross. And like it is gross. Horses kind of pass a lot of gas and they move pretty slow. And I have to say shout out to another Michigander, what's his name, Ford. Gerald? Nope. President. Wow. What's the guy's name? Like a rock. That's Chevy. Hey. Henry. Henry Ford. Shout out to Henry for creating the automobile because it's a better way to get around. I know this sounds incredibly weird, but when we first walked up to the Grand Hotel where we stayed, it's so big. It's the biggest portrait in America. It was built in like the 1800s in 90 days. It's massive. It's majestic. The view is gorgeous. And I shed a small tear. And I think it was because I had just spent 7, 8 hours in the car with the toddler. Then we had to wait for a ferry and get to the ferry, put our luggage on a ferry, and then put my other luggage that I needed in the next 3 hours in other bags, along with diaper bags and stuff for my kid, because they tell you when the hotel takes your luggage on the ferry that you'll get it back within 3 hours. But then at 6:30 p.m. at the Grand Hotel, there's dress code, and men have to like wear ties and jackets and women have to dress formal as well, but they can't really enforce women as well because we have so much variability in our attire, which love that for us. But I did watch dudes get turned away for drinks for not wearing ties, which I did not think it was going to be that seriously enforced. If you're a lot of you are from the mid-Atlantic like me, so you're probably very familiar with the Greenbrier. Very big Greenbrier energy. Also both decorated at one point by Dorothy Draper, which we love because we want the Drapers to clash with the wallpaper, to clash with the comforter. I was almost disappointed because my room was so tastefully decorated, but some of the rooms there and at the Greenbrier are truly bordering on hideous, which makes them beautiful because as millennials, we love maximalism and commitment to like a sartorial experience that I have to say I appreciate. And I know it teeters on like classist and you, and trust me, I know there's a lot of things with this hotel I have mixed feelings about. You're quite literally transported in time in a way that feels charming and uncomfortable, if that makes sense. To be clear, if you don't have a tie, you can get one at the service desk. There was a bridal party that came there for like an after party of their rehearsal dinner or something, and they literally wouldn't give the groom a drink for not wearing a tie. Like that's pretty crazy. And women are not allowed to bring drinks to tieless men. which I kind of love for us, honestly. Like, what are you doing? Follow the rules, read the instructions, don't weaponize your incompetence around these parts. So I'm on vacation. But because that would be an easy workaround, right? Like, oh, they aren't wearing a tie. I'll get two drinks and bring one out. But they like clock that, which is funny because a lot of people told me it wasn't that enforced, but I found it to be enforced. But maybe it's because it was a holiday weekend and there's a lot more people around. But if you didn't bring, it's what made me feel better is that if you didn't bring a tie, it wasn't like you're beneath us, leave. We can go borrow one. And I do think that's an important distinction. I've been turned away from a couple restaurants in hotels like this before for even having like a slight distressing on denim, like the Polo Lounge, for example, in LA. You can't go in there if you have even the slightest bit of distressing. And I did on the hem, and I didn't have other pants with me at the time. And I remember finding it really upsetting and embarrassing. And I don't like when these things humiliate people. I don't think that's cool. But I did find the dressing up part to be charming, if anything, because my darling son, the first time he put on a sport coat, he like did two spins and walked toward me. It was like fashion show at lunch. It was incredible. And we got stopped every 5 seconds. It was kind of like, on Rent the Runway when every review is like so many compliments. And I literally have worn all of that stuff and never gotten a single compliment. It's like Teddy was the so many compliments guy in his little Janie and Jack blazers that Clary with the Muffins, her older sister, actually sent to us. God bless her. He's the cutest thing in the entire world, at least I think. And I don't know. For all the ways that traveling with an inflexible toddler can be so nightmarish and requires so much over preparation that I work myself up into an anxiety attack going into the vacation in ways that hardly feels worth it. That then takes me several days to wind down from. By that time, I'm checking out and having to pack up again. But this was one of the first times we've gone somewhere with him where I was like, I felt like I could relax. I felt like it was actually fun for me and actually fun for him. And the thing I didn't understand about being a parent before I had a kid, because I wasn't that drawn to kids or didn't know a lot of them, is that it actually is fun for me for him to have fun. Like, do I need to play cars all day, every day? No. Why do you think I took him to an island with no cars? If I talk about one more piece of construction equipment, I desperately wish to mix it up from talking about cement mixers and front loaders. But I also find his interest in these things to be so sweet. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And the farther I get into this, the more I just totally understand why it's just, you can't tell people definitively if they should have a kid or not because every experience is so variable. And beyond that, there's just like, I don't know if ambivalence is the right word, but you just often feel two ways. And it's just really hard to explain how something can be like so worth it, but so frustrating sometimes. And yeah, anymore when people want me to follow up on childless millennial, I'm like, the process of bringing a child to this world has been a surf and turf of joy and agony that I never know how to explain, that I do a million times over if I had to, in order to have the experience I'm having with him high level. But day to day, it can be rather mundane, rather under or overstimulating. And just the sheer amount of packing you have to do to go somewhere, because parenting to me is one giant game of troubleshooting, and troubleshooting requires options. And the amount of like scenarios Greg and I think through and prepare for to go into these trips is insane. And I don't see how people do it with multiple kids. I don't know if I could do it with more kids than people. And it makes me I really appreciate the family vacations we had growing up because we always went to the Outer Banks, and that was like a really special place. But we had like maybe like three, I'd say three really memorable trips we went on, like, and when I was in elementary school and middle school and in high school. And they were so memorable because they weren't frequent. And when we would do special things, it was so special and memorable. You know how they say the things kids remember the most are birthdays and vacations? And I always think about how so much of my content, my work, my talking about nostalgia, my writing of One and a Millennial, so much of my personality and my feelings toward things was developed in the longing for them. And I do want to be mindful of like, just because I feel like I worked my way to this point in life to have nice experiences, like I'm not overindulging my kid in like the best of the best at too young of an age. Cause like I love the luxury spots that are fun for kids, but I want to be careful about that as he gets older too. And I will say, even though this was a very nice experience, it is a hike. But I guess what I was getting at is that I love these types of vacations. I'd be interested to hear from you guys other places you've had this experience, but I also want to be mindful of my desire for comfort and feeling like I worked to get to a place to do things for the point I am in life and the things I've always wanted to spend disposable income on. But bringing my kid along, I'm like, well, I actually think the reason this is so meaningful to me is because I didn't do this all the time. Being in a situation where my kids don't have to experience what is the very normal and important misery and clunkiness of family travel. It's an important part of life, I think. Because then when something's really cush, whew, there's nothing like it. Like we stayed in a cabin once on our family trip to Yosemite. Couldn't tell you a single thing about the landscape, the mountains, the nature. But I could tell you that they had an ample VHS collection in this cabin, and we watched Hocus Pocus every single night, and I was in heaven. Also, my siblings, I have two, we all like genuinely really like hotels, like trip planning. And I think it's because we in high school, like the nicest hotel I'd ever stayed at in Dana Point, which I think is now the Waldorf, where Tamara and Eddie got married. This was the heyday of SoCal Laguna Beach in like 2004, 2005. I was so excited to be there. I It was the most beautiful hotel I'd ever seen, and I feel like my siblings, we like walked in, we all put on like a plush terry cloth robe, and we were like, yeah, I think this is where we belong. Like I think we all really like that stuff because of like the way our childhood carved out the memories and the excitement of going someplace that really felt like such a vacation and a departure from life, but not in a way that was like so frequent it was taken for granted. Anyways, just curious if anybody else thinks that, because I think there's a lot of character to be built in the longing, in the special occasion. I guess I just wanted to share because I liked Mackinac because it was a lot of packing, a lot of clunkiness. The no cars thing is kind of tough. The ferry thing's kind of the idea of it overwhelmed me. It was like a hike, a long, long day. And it had both the clunkiness of family vacation travel that I think builds character, but also a true, like, nice vacation. Anyway, it's like just delightful. And I was sitting there in a rocking chair in a matching set with a Aperol spritz bigger than my head, my son happily playing with his grandma and sitting around with family. And I thought, this is my happy place. But made even better by the fact that my husband noticed by looking at the back of someone's head that they were in fact Kid Rock, which is crazy for a man to sing a song about summertime in northern Michigan. We were trying different things. We were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite songs. You guys get it? Yeah, I was saying it would be like why can't I ever think of an example? It'd be like seeing Taylor Swift on Cornelia Street. It's just like, oh, dang, this is really on the nose. It'd be like seeing they might be giants in Istanbul, not Constantinople. You know what I mean? As I told you on Instagram, if you think I present as a Kid Rock fan, I've done everything wrong and I may as well just quit right here and now. And I would have never clocked it, but he did have two braided like rat tails. And I saw a few Beths while I was on the island. And then one of them was like in the parlor that I had just seen when I was out on the porch. And I went back in to inform her that Kid Rock was on the porch. I don't know if she cared, but it felt like something that I should share with the community. Also, somebody told me they saw me at a lunch location. I had like one mini meltdown while I was there because we walked downtown and we schlepped the stroller with all this stuff because we were like getting some groceries for a picnic we were gonna have later. So it was like hot and sweaty. It was just like the Saturday or Sunday of Labor Day was like packed like sardines. Get sandwiches, sit down outside. There's like a million bees. And I don't know if you guys watched My Girl, but I'm very scared of my child getting stung by bees. I had a small meltdown where I was like swatting bees, taking her sandwiches, putting them in the stroller, and being like, "We're leaving," and telling Greg that like I'm not having my baby in this one horse town go on an ambulance via horseback. Should something happen. I just kind of like had a moment where I was like, no. Do you ever have those like mom moments where you're just like, per Istanbul, not Constantinople, let's call the whole thing off. Like, we're not doing it. And later I got a DM being like, hey, I saw you earlier, but it seemed to be such a somewhat of a bee situation. I was like, God, I'm so embarrassing sometimes. I do think in general, as we the people overreact to bees a bit, because the stings don't hurt that bad. But I do think the allergy of it all is tough. And I do think millennials are haunted by My Girl in the same way we're haunted by A Little Princess. When the little girl Sarah desperately tries to make her father remember her, whoof, what a gut punch. And I talked about this in my book, One in a Millennial, but I do think it's important because they both were movies that sometimes I get confused that like really fucked with my head as a child. The same author wrote A Secret Garden and A Little Princess. I mean, verbal psychological warfare. Regardless, you guys, shall we get into some voicemails? Something that made me feel like $1 million while I spent $1 million at this resort was, oh, see, at least I looked the part. I feel like we talk about so much about like skincare as in like your face, like neck up, but body care matters too. And as a gal with like very dry strawberry skin that has historically not felt the most glowy, Andari algae body oil from Osea like changed my life. It's the secret to glowing skin. Andari seaweed is their not so secret ingredient in their best selling algae body oil. Apparently, seaweed is a nutrient dense superfood packed with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants to help replenish your skin's moisture barrier. What was really interesting is that Undaria is actually considered to be an invasive species. And Osea turns that challenge into something positive by harvesting it responsibly and putting it to good use using sustainable seaweed sourced from the cleanest waters on Earth. It's gentle on the planet, so you don't have to compromise your values if you want to find a product that's going to visibly firm, make skin feel sculpted, toned, rich, never greasy, clinically shown to improve skin elasticity. The craziest thing about this oil to me is that it's fast absorbing and it doesn't get grease on the sheets. And yeah, I don't know how it works, but it is TikTok famous for a reason. It's famous in my heart for a reason. It's Osea's number one best-selling product that just makes my skin look and feel soft and glowing. It just makes me feel more confident in general. And I don't know what this is, but I like dread putting on lotion oftentimes in many ways. I don't dread putting this on. Genuinely, I look forward to it, and I've been using it for years. Get healthy, glowing skin for summer with clean vegan skin and body care from Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code BeThereIn5 at OseaMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $50. Head to OSEAMalibu.com and use code BeThereIn5 for 10% off. This episode is brought to you by Cozy Earth. I report live from my Cozy Earth sheets under Cozy Earth comforter within reach of Cozy Earth bubble blanket. God, I love everything about them. There's something going on with one of my like shop accounts online where they send receipts to my sister's phone number. Now, it has almost become an inside joke. She cannot believe how much money I spend at Cozy Earth. It seems like every week I'm like, I'm just going to clean house of all the pillows in my home and just get Cozy Earth ones. I want to know. I feel like I need a sage green duvet. That was this week. Cozy Earth's bamboo sheets are temperature regulating, guaranteed to give you a comfortable night's sleep. Made from viscose from bamboo, they naturally wick away heat and moisture from your body, helping you sleep several degrees cooler. Also, their bubble cuddle blanket has like a cult following. It's heavy and substantial and double-sided, and like you just kind of melt in it. It's a combination of comfort and style with its textured bubble design. It's intricately woven. It's like the throw blanket to end all throw blankets. I feel like a lot of you guys are bed people like me. Cozy Earth is the official sponsor of bed people. My gosh. You only deserve the best. I mean, every home needs a soft place to land, metaphorically, of course, but also physically. And this is the type of stuff that will give you the spot that you look forward to coming home to at the end of a long day. I haven't traveled with a pillow since I was a child. Like, that's just not a normal thing for an adult woman to do, is like carry a pillow with you, is it? Not a travel pillow, full-size king pillow. Brought it with me on the way to Mackinac. Literally can't be without my Cozy Earth pillow. Anyway, it's a risk-free purchase, a 100-night sleep trial. Try them out. If you don't love them, return them hassle-free. Also, a 10-year warranty, so you'll have these products for a while. And if you head to CozyEarth.com, use my code BeThereIn5 for 40% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, make sure to let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Because your bed should be more than a place to sleep. It should be your happy place. Cozy Earth makes that possible.
Hey, Beth. I was just thinking about Lacoste polo shirts and how much I used to love them and how they were a status symbol in high school, obviously. And then it got me to thinking about randomly Le Tigre, not to be confused with Zoolander's Le Tigre, but actually the polo shirt that used to have a little tiger on it. I don't know if you were familiar with those. And I hadn't thought about that in years, and it was just it's a funny thing to remember how we used to just be obsessed with all these little critters on our shirts. And I was wondering if you wanted to just do like a quick recap of, the entire zoo that you could think of that we were wearing on our shirts back in, the early 2000s. All right. Thanks. Love you. Bye.
I feel so understood, guys. Like, thank you for these questions. These are so important. When I was a teenager, like high school, college, kind of when we were, especially more young women were wearing polos, there was a real proliferation of brands who tried to have little critters. But I actually think that Lacoste was a level of elite above a polo. A Lacoste polo was really expensive. I wrote about Lacoste polos in my book because it was a brand that like had kind of a resurgence among young people in the 2000s that my dad wore a lot of in the 80s. And when I found in our closet that he had kept some of his old Lacoste shirts, and like he had this green windbreaker that was like a men's extra large that I was absolutely drowning in, but it didn't matter how it fit if I was going to fit in. And the way I wore that green vintage Lacoste windbreaker like everywhere I went, and that was the first thing I had ever bought online. Like the concept of buying something online I became aware of in high school. I heard about eBay, and the first thing I ever bought on eBay was another vintage Lacoste, like extra large windbreaker in blue, that I have so many photos in, and I felt so cool with that gator by my side. But to your question, this is why I love you guys because the way I've excavated my youth and life and fashion choices for my book, This Podcast and Beyond, it's like I feel like I remember most things, but you guys always will catch something I actually forgot about, and I really forgot about Latigra. And Latigra really had a moment where it felt to me, at least, as elite as Lacoste, which actually I found at the time more elite than a Polo, even though they were probably similar price point wise, if new. But from what I remember, Lacoste didn't have an outlet at the premium outlets of Colonial Williamsburg, where Polo did at the time. So I could either get a cheaper Polo at the outlets or from Steinmart, where I usually got my polos. There was something going on with Lacoste and Izod where like I'd think I was going to a Lacoste store outlet, but everything said Izod in a way that just like didn't inspire me. But yeah, I actually think if I were to rank, I would say Lacoste is was probably the thing I coveted the most for like status, but like I didn't obsess over because they weren't as common and you could get away with the look with the polo and that those there were workarounds and ways I could afford those. Lacoste was kind of like, oh, you're rich, rich, you know. La Tigra to me, it was like so short-lived and it's defunct now, right? Maybe we'll snorkel in a second. Everybody wants a La Tigra snorkel today. So yeah, I would say like Polo, Lacoste, La Tigra were kind of like on a different level of like fancy preppy even though they were not that far off price point wise from the mall stores, but the mall store critters didn't necessarily carry the same gravitas, with the exception of a moose. You know what I'm going to say, you guys? You know what I'm going to say. Say it with me. I need a bigger motherfucking moose on this motherfucking shirt. One of the things most quoted to me from an episode of Bath and Body Jerks, and I mean every word. Having a moose on the loose in my closet was my version of snakes on a plane in the best way. A moose is intimidating. It's large. It's in your face. It's like those shirtless men or the hot greeters in front of the Abercrombie. The presence is so overtaking and intimidating, but it doesn't matter. We're not here for fit. We're not here for function. We're here for flair. We're here for social capital. We're here to belong. A moose critter on your shirt, the bigger the better. It was effectively like a stamp of approval that like even if you weren't cool, your outfit was cool. I just think the Hollister Seagull and the American Eagle could never. And I mean like imagine the J. Crew oars. Like, oh, you're gonna go up against this moose? Like, are you kidding me? Rock, paper, scissors, moose. Moose always is gonna beat all of those mall mascots, and I don't care what anybody says. When Abercrombie released their giant meese, do you guys know Mary Kate and Ashley first video? A moose and a moose makes two meese. A goose and a goose makes two geese. A mouse and a mouse makes two mice. Anyways, our first video is so important. Brother for sale, only 50 cents. Speaking of things that were never on sale, Abercrombie in the mall store arena, there's no experience like it. The staff that's hot and terrifying. To live for the hope of it all, that you were hot enough to be asked to work there, literally meet me behind the mall. I truly can't imagine what that must have been like. It's like the 90s dream of getting scouted to be a model in a mall. But yeah, I wasn't there for like collared shirts. I kind of like Hollister, I wasn't there for the polos as often as I was for like graphic tees, you know? Because like every seventh grader needs a shirt that says, "Have you met the twins?" The popular shirt at the time that would be debatably acceptable for a school dress code like said "Buck Wild," not a cowgirl on it. But for the rest of us on a babysitting budget who had to go to the clearance rack, you were in seventh grade sporting a shirt that said, you know, "I kissed a cowboy at Woody's Dude Ranch." So mall stores, it's like I actually feel like the mascots are kind of proportionate to what they're offering because a seagull's kind of like nagging and always around and pecking at other stuff. And I feel like Hollister lifted a lot of like copied a lot of American Eagle and Abercrombie type designs, but just made them like thinner, worse quality, a little bit more SoCal inspired and just as expensive. But then asphyxiated us in the Tiki Hut stores with the perfume and traumatized us in the group dressing rooms. Very like seagull energy, low flying, low flying. Can I just say, whoever's responsible, Mr. or Mrs. Aritzia, are you out there? For the love of God, I know you're doing fine financially. The way you overcharge for basics is criminal, but I do love your effortless pants. However, it is incredibly effortful and nightmarish as a grown-ass woman, especially one who's been through a lot of bodily changes in recent years with childbirth, to have to go out in the fucking like lobby of the store to see how an overpriced basic fits. I don't care how long it takes. I will wait 90 minutes off to the side in Aritzia just to get one of the two dressing rooms that have a mirror. The thing is, the dressing room lines are always longer too because young people shop there. And when young people come out in the center mirror, not only are their tiny bodies not aware how they make me feel next to them, they also like loiter and talk. And it creates a sense of community that doesn't need to be there in a dressing room that I think should very clearly be every man for himself. I don't want to be spoken to. I don't want to compliment. Don't tell me that these very basic pleated pants with the most standardized silhouette of all time were made for me. I know better. But yes, Hollister does have big seagull energy. Hollister's clothes remained fragrant in ways that Abercrombie also asphyxiated you, but I don't think the clothes lingered the scent as much. Hollister employees were kind of mean. Inside was kind of dark. I felt like they knew I didn't surf. I think American Eagle does have big eagle energy because that logo meant nothing to me as well, even though the store did. That logo, it's an Eagle's very all American. It's very standard. It doesn't really grab the eye in a way. American Eagle at the time was like very preppy, very rugby. If you were coveting a yellow and white rugby shirt with a raw hem jean skirt and a corduroy jacket with a shearling collar. Like that's where it had like stuff that I really wanted, but it was like expensive, all-American preppy. And it really does match the eagle. But to me, the clothes there mattered way more than the logo. Otherwise, I didn't dabble as heavily in super preppy expensive stuff because I know Vineyard Vines carried status, especially amongst the coastal elite and preppy. I used to find a cute that little cutie pink whale. I really do like, and Teddy has a couple of Vineyard Vines things. I used to like a pink whale on a younger frat boy, but now I actually think the Vineyard Vines logo is a bit juvenile. And while I won't bat an eye at a critter on a grown man's chest like a penguin or a Tommy Frickin' Hilfiger, like to quote Lisa Rinna, I think that something very classy, very demure is a Brooks Brothers pig being dangled from like ribbons, maybe, or like a laurel. Wait, no, it's a sheep. It's like a woolly sheep being dangled from a ribbon, like a kind of like a stork pouch. Huh. And Mr. Brooks, the brother, is who originated the polo shirt long before Ralph Lauren ever did. And actually, who came before Ralph Lauren was even Lacoste, because Lacoste, the last name Lacoste, was this very well-known tennis player who was called the Crocodile because of like how fast he would move, kind of like a crocodile attacking. But yeah, I was just at a glance researching the origin of the polo shirt, and I was like, huh, you really do. It does seem like Ralph Lauren was the first to do this, but it was Brooks Brothers and then Lacoste making these like functional collared shirts, but typically used like for sport. And like I think Lacoste started out with like tennis wear that was polyester, and Ralph Lauren was the first to like make them cotton or something. Anyways, current menswear, Polo, classic, always works. U.S. Polo Association, Polo dupe, the Burlington Coat Factory wannabe polo that I think is really misleading and tripped me up a few times. Anyway, when you look up La Tigra, it's no longer around. Oh, interesting. God, I don't have time to get into Kenneth Cole, you guys. Kenneth Cole's parent company bought La Tigra, and now it's no longer. I think it got sold off in the 2010s, and I think it might be relaunching soon, but it's not really around. I find Kenneth Cole to be fascinating in terms of like like being the patron saint of Marshalls. That he's the male Anne Klein. Like I have an episode called Marshall's Law, which now feels tough given the wholly unnecessary, confusing, and embarrassing distraction of a situation that is like deploying troops in cities like DC and Chicago for no fucking reason. And the martial law of it all feels less light. But Marshall's Law is in relation to the Holy Trinity, Marshall's Home Goods, TJ Maxx. And the first rule of Marshall's Law, if I recall, is that the inventory is only as good as there are dust bunnies in the dressing room corner. The more try on tumbleweeds that exist in that Marshall's dressing room, the less people there, which means it's less picked over. So if a dressing room is disgusting, if there's no attendant, you don't have to take a number, the door is barely on its hinges, and it is so dusty, it's getting all over the bottom of your, I don't know, Cynthia Rowley duster. That's how you know it's the good stuff. I have always been fascinated by how much stuff there is Kenneth Cole or like Perry Ellis, you know? And actually, let me see what if they still are, what they're, I don't know if Kenneth Cole owns a bunch of stuff, kind of like LVMH or whatever, but I could talk about parent companies for days. Oh, that was a jump scare. Whoa. Oh my God. Kenneth Cole reacting. Who's front and center on the main page of Kenneth Cole? I'll give you one guess, and it's a person that is in the self-help field who is literally everywhere and I never asked for. And that is, of course, Jay Shetty. Why is this man everywhere? They're gorgeous eyes. But like I feel like they tell me lies. And there's a lot of weirdness with his monk story. And I know, he has this job title that's so impressive, and I don't know how anybody would do it. So he deserves all the credit in the world because he is a best-selling author, podcast, and entrepreneur. And I don't know anybody around these parts who's those three things as well that gets nowhere near the opportunities. But why? Like how that's so random that Kenneth Cole of all I can't deal. That's really funny to me. But yeah, La Tigra, they no longer own it, and it was meant to rival Lacoste. It was offered in 1977, a leaping tiger in lieu of the signature crocodile. It made a comeback in 2003. That makes sense out of being out of production. And then when it was bought by Kenneth Cole in 2007, it kind of fell off the map. Wow. Talking about diffusion lines, it's one of my favorite things. Because I think I didn't understand that for so long. And that's kind of the whole point. Like when I was shopping in high school and college, I didn't understand Armani Exchange wasn't Armani or just Cavalli, it wasn't Roberto Cavalli. My favorites are like the ones that just have to repeat the name over and over, like Kors, Michael Kors. Or have you seen that meme? And it's like I think a real tag. It's literally, I think it's a purse, and the tag says Jacobs by Marc Jacobs for Mark by Marc Jacobs in collaboration with Marc Jacobs for Mark by Marc Jacobs. That would be like Kennedy by Kate Kennedy for Kate by Kate Kennedy in collaboration with Kate Kennedy for Kate by Kate Kennedy. Like that's in it. That's fucking insane. Regardless, what was the question? Wow. Do you feel like as a society we really stopped talking about Topshop? There was a time when I like shopped there. I haven't even thought about a Topshop in years. Interesting. Okay, I should probably get to the next question. We're going to be lucky if we get through max 4 questions here. Hi, Kate, longtime listener, first time texter. My husband and I regularly visit our local PF Chang's. I have celiac disease and they're really great with allergies. I agree. They'll clean out that walk. It got me thinking about tiers of mall core chain restaurants. For example, I put TGI Fridays, Applebee's, Ruby Tuesday on the same level, but see PF Chang's, Cheesecake Factory, and Maggiano's as fancy birthday dinner type. I'm curious what your tiers are and thoughts on various types of chain sit-down restaurants in mall areas. Thank you for asking. Wow. You guys, I feel understood. I feel seen. Let's dive in. I do have tiers, and I feel like I need to take an ad break, bathroom break, of whatever. I need to write down what comes to mind for tiers and make sure, and I'll look it up too online. So I'm including most generic suburban mall chains because I really feel strongly about chain restaurants. I feel I was such a snob about them in the early like 2010s, when we were like farm to table, like it wasn't pizza, it was flatbread. I just was kind of like, ew, when I first moved to a city and wasn't in a suburb and didn't see as many chains. But now I like have this appreciation for them where I associate them with like celebration. Courtney and I have this in common. When I like will do book events out in the burbs, we'll go to Chili's. When she asked me if I wanted to take some friends somewhere and to celebrate like me turning in my first manuscript and like I was newly pregnant at the time. I don't know. And in a safe space amongst girlfriends, the only place I want to be to celebrate something is a Cheesecake Factory. But we didn't go to the Mag Mile, which is a great one. It's kind of like cool and underground in a weird way. We went to the old Orchard Mall, and the food was not great, but the atmosphere is important to me. The atmosphere is so chaotic and maximalist, and you don't know what era you're in, what continent you're on. You cannot place what they were going for when you're in a muted yellow and brown space that has a fleur-de-lis next to a sphinx, next to a non-load bearing Roman column. This is my Roman Empire, the Cheesecake Factory decor. I really respect it. You could be in ancient Egypt and you could be in Vegas yesterday and you would never know the difference. And it's like, I think it's soothing to me because of that 2000s je ne sais quoi, where we would take individual items that could be perceived as like fancy standalone, but mash them together until they were so cheesy, you end up with a factory and call it the Cheesecake Factory. And it's kind of like Tuscan Kitchen or like McMansion adjacent, where, like a gable is a gorgeous on its own, but you put like four on a 4-bed, 2.5 bath, and there's like a porte cochere where there's a stubby driveway and like a tiny suburban lot. But somehow Cheesecake Factory still feels elevated to me, and I still feel like somebody there. And the sweet tinge of the brown bread surprises and delights, the harlequin checkered floors. Sometimes you look up and you'll see like a fresco. Or I'm like, is that a fully mosaiced ceiling? Am I in St. Mark's Basilica? It surprises you around literally every corner. And next time you are in a Cheesecake Factory, I encourage you to look around. Look up, look down, take it in, and then take in what all of this has to do with cheesecake. And the answer is not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. This will make sense to three people. To me, a Cheesecake Factory has the same energy as the cover of the CD for Microsoft Encarta. I believe it was Windows 95. Regardless, most Cheesecake Factories, most Grand Lux cafes, it's a fairy tales are made of it. A staircase me at Thermopolis would mattress surf down, and you just can't get that everywhere you go at a place with price points that are decently acceptable, with a paralyzing level of options that all sound good, so it's hard to decide, but like none actually sound that great. You know what I mean? Oh my God, this is such a think piece. But you know how strongly I feel about a mall, whether it's the critters on our polo shirts or the ones who are swatting away from our food at a makeshift dining al fresco situation that's essentially in a suburban parking lot at a Brio Tuscan grill. There's a level that's like anniversary dinner, like homecoming. Yeah, like homecoming group prom meal, calling to get a reservation for 32. Unless you can get in at the local hibachi spot, which is obviously the elite choice for pre-dance dining. Confusing given the portion sizes and how difficult it is to get the grease from a flying shrimp out of a Jessica McClintock couture. God forbid. So there's like homecoming, anniversary, like vibes. Unfortunately, not every night can be a tier one anniversary celebratory night where you go to a local chain restaurant fine dining at your nearest mall. So we have to find good things to eat at home. And thank God we have Cook Unity because as you transition into your fall routines, if things get boring, if you need something quickly, if you don't want to sacrifice flavor for health, Cook Unity chefs make healthy eating easy and delicious. I had a friend ask me about this week. Like, do you really like it? And I was like, I really do. Cook Unity is for people that like food that tastes good. There's so many meal delivery services that have the most bland, awful microwave food that's frozen. Not only is Cook Unity fresh and never frozen, it's crafted by renowned chefs. It's kind of like having private chefs meal prep your week. Their ever expanding menu of over 300 small batch meals tailored to your lifestyle, dietary needs, cravings, and the people curating these meals and providing the recipes are all-star chefs like Food Network alums, James Beard Award winners, acclaimed restaurateurs. And you can browse in the app by chef, by protein, by cuisine, by dietary need. I'm not entirely sure what this means, but you can even filter macros down to the gram if that's something that you want to do. I love the barbecue pulled pork with esquites. I love my mushroom penne pasta. I actually really like it for pasta dishes. But also, this is one of the few places I actually will eat baked chicken because it'll come with like a delicious kind of caprese vibe couscous, or I can get a high quality Caesar salad, which I am about to tell you what I need in a Caesar dressing. Cook Unity makes a solid one, I must say. And the commitment-free subscription starts as low as $11 a meal. Skip deliveries, pause, or cancel anytime. Fuel your day with the freshest, best-tasting meal delivery made by award-winning chefs. Go to cookunity.com/bethereinfivefree or enter code bethereinfivefree before checkout for free premium meals for life. That's free premium meals for life by using code bethereinfivefree or going to cookunity.com/bethereinfivefree. This episode is brought to you by Ritual. And in all seriousness, I mean, I'm doing a lot of power ranking in this episode and I'm about to do more. But when it comes to like your health, nobody wants to rank the lowest. Nobody wants to feel like an afterthought, especially when it comes to pregnancy. And I feel strongly about how weirdly put on a pedestal you are by society as a pregnant woman, but you're also like so overlooked and dismissed. And pregnant women, particularly those from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds, are routinely excluded from clinical studies, which is insane. And many prenatal multivitamins aren't even clinically tested, and they're, intended to support one of the most critical phases of human development. When I learned about Ritual and what they're doing to close this gap, aiming to set a new standard for the supplement industry with a groundbreaking 24-week clinical trial for their essential prenatal multivitamin, they're also pushing for more inclusive and comprehensive studies that prioritize women, especially during pregnancy. We're in an interesting time as it relates to like institutional trust and like knowing what you can rely on. And I just appreciate their commitment to like science and evidence based data. And I think it's just pregnancy is such a vulnerable time where like you just don't really want to mess around. And that's why the founder even started it to have a prenatal that she had full transparency into the supply chain of. And it's the number one best selling prenatal and the only prenatal backed by its own human clinical trial. And what I really appreciate about Ritual is that it's like genuinely easier to swallow, gentler on the stomach, especially given my last one, I was like quite sick. It's reported to be easier to swallow, and I can report it's gentler on the stomach. Just a positive overall experience in terms of supplement taking, especially when you don't feel good. It goes down easy and it has like this lovely citrus aftertaste. Their regular women's multi has like a minty one. I love all of their products. And it's HSA FSA eligible with a seamless checkout experience, so you can save when you shop with pre-tax dollars. Don't settle for less than evidence-based support. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/bethereinfive. Start Ritual or add Essential Prenatal to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/bethereinfive for 25% off. There is a tier that feels like, what are you doing here without Dorinda? Like Ruth's Chris, like an Morton's, the steakhouse, a Capitol Grill, a Del Frisco's, a Fleming's. Like, I think like the higher end steakhouses are sometimes in a mall or like an outdoor high end mall setting, but like it kind of feels a little out of place, and the entrees like are at least $50 type of vibe. So, but those like I never went to growing up. Like those I still don't really go to now. My happy place isn't Elite Steak, but it's also not Ruby Tuesdays, although that's a fantastic Rolling Stones song and outro clip from SNL, Kristen Wiig's last episode. Real tearjerker. There's something about that tier one chain that feels celebratory. Yeah, it's Cheesecake Factory. The Grand Lux Cafe is in this category. A Brio Tuscan Grill, Carrabba's Italian Grill. Uh, what's his face's Macaroni Grill. I would say that Maggiano's Little Italy falls here too. They're actually, Lexi from Summer House. A couple of months ago, she did almost the funniest, like scripted on the nose ad for Maggiano's. And it kind of was so bad it was good. And I was like, yeah, why are we overthinking ads, influencers? Just stick to the script. It was like, it almost now is worse trying to be convincing that it's natural. And it was so on the nose. And it made me so hungry for Maggiano's that I paid $60 sight unseen and got delivery from the one in River North. And I think I got like a vodka rigatoni and that like incredibly pungent house salad they have, like their specialty salad, the Maggiano salad. It has like copious amounts of raw onions and a shit ton of blue cheese. That becomes the dish of the day for your breath, like the plat du jour that nobody ever wanted. It is so incredibly strong. But my mom used to serve the catered Maggiano salads at our family's annual St. Patrick's Day party, and the smell becomes a lot less of an issue when it's cut with an Irish coffee. So it holds a special place in my heart in terms of like the catering of a Maggiano's. Also, like they have a pretty good Caesar, and I'm picky about a Caesar as we've talked about with a chicken Caesar wrap, but they're it's kind of like lemony and thick. You know how there are Caesar dressings that are like a little too like oil forward that are almost translucent, and then there's like a Caesar dressing that's too white and too creamy and too ranch adjacent. I think a Caesar to be like proper needs to be like a healthy taupe. And I don't like a Caesar too anchovy forward, though I know a lot of people do. I think like a true Caesar is supposed to have a bit of a funk to it, but it has the Maggiano's one has a kind of a weird tart citrus finish that makes it more balanced. And I'm a big fan I'm a big fan of a lot of chain restaurants, Caesars. Oh, in this tier also, obviously, one of the greatest, California Pizza Kitchen. If you've not sat down with a female friend and solved all the world's problems over splitting a half barbecue chicken chopped salad, where have you been? It really is healing in a big way. I love PF Chang's. I think it's so good. I have really good memories at PF Chang's. And I have a fun memory of a waiter telling my sister she looked like Wilma Flintstone because we were wearing huge ass pearls at the time. I feel like I assured her that huge ass pearls were in because I was making like DIY pearl necklaces and metal ball necklaces at the time, like Tiffany's knockoffs, and tying them with huge ribbons again in my preppy polo ribbon belt phase. And yeah, she got like roasted by a PF Chang's waiter. And also like what chemists, what women and men in STEM when they come to your table and mix that sauce together. And like the twinkle in a server's eye when they're like, I put a little sugar in it. I'm like, oh, a secret recipe. And then there's like this middle ground in between like date night anniversary, birthday, and the third tier, which I would say is like we're hungry and it's here. There's there's good places in between those two that I don't really know how to qualify, but like maybe it's just like decent meal. Because I think in this tier it's like stuff that's kind of expensive, but not necessarily like elite and exciting. Any of the steakhouses, like Outback, Texas Roadhouse, Longhorn. I also think that like this is potentially where Olive Garden could fit in. I feel like Olive Garden is more ideal than like an Applebee's. But some people might consider those the same thing. And I think most of us can get it up for like an unlimited soup, salad, breadsticks. Like, can't beat it. I also think in this in between categories, like a Red Robin, bottomless fries. Clearly, there's a trend here. I think tier three is like, and I'm not counting food court stuff. Tier three to me, that the what I'm calling we're hungry and it's here is like Applebee's, Chili's, Ruby Tuesday, TGI Fridays. And it's not that they're not good because everything does have its signature item. Like I crave a Chili's, I love a Chili's. They have really strong queso and really strong margarita deals. Then to me, tier four is like, what are you doing here, Stuart? You know what I mean? Like, get out of here. Like Bennigan's, why? Oh, Charlie's, no. Perkins. Why though? Shoney's. Oh. Friendly's. Good, but a light bulb did break into my sister's Sunday and she did swallow shards of glass. Anyway, do you remember when it came out that apparently Cheesecake Factory was having trouble paying its rent? Their leases are so expensive because the spaces are so large. They're like palatial. S- And then when no one was dining out during COVID, also like can you imagine the food service bill alone to like carry that many SKUs? I don't see how a restaurant would have that big of a menu. It doesn't make any sense to me. Um, but yeah, so they couldn't afford rent for these giant spaces. So wasn't the story just like we're not going to pay rent, which, is the plot of a musical called Rent. So then I wrote a song called 525,600 Items about their extensive menu and trying to make choices. And it's a parody song that's not as good as the American Girl Hamilton mashup, but does gets the job done. It was something like in small plates, in sliders, in Tex-Mex, is that hibachi? In Thai food, in flatbreads, or something. And then it was like, how about club? Wow, voice of an angel. Opinions of the most annoying person you know. Um, let's get to the next voicemail.
Hi, Kate. Love the pod. Was thinking about the dipping sauce ranking, and it got me thinking about something that happened to me recently, where my whole family had the stomach virus. My husband, Jello, and I was just like, objectively, this is the wrong flavor for a stomach virus. I like don't know what to tell you, sir. But it got me thinking. Like, I have very strong feelings that there are certain Jello pairings for certain ailments and certain Gatorade colors. They're really not flavors; they're colors for certain ailments. And I feel like lemon lime is really like because you're thirsty, you're dehydrated. It's summertime. But like if you're sick, it's got to be blue. It's got to be blue raspberry. I don't know if you have any definitive thoughts about about these pairings. If there's any others that I'm like neglecting, but I knew if anybody could come up with a list, it was you. Looking forward to your thoughts. Have a good one. Bye.
Kind Beth, I thank you for calling, and please don't take this the wrong way because I am incredibly grateful for you, and I, in general, respect your taste. But your literal taste in this sense, unfortunately, is objectively wrong because drinking a cool blue Gatorade with the stomach flu to me is like chewing on a sour bright crawler when you have like an active open cavity. Cool blue has not only a very thick mouth feel, I don't think there's any answer to in terms of being sick other than lemon lime. To me, lemon lime Gatorade is as ubiquitous to being sick as like a chicken noodle soup would be. It hits the perfect balance when if your stomach's questionable or if you're sick and you don't like your taste buds aren't really there. It's sour and strong enough to like taste like something, which is really nice when you don't just want water. And I think there's something with like lemon that it evokes like fresh, it evokes clean. It'll make you feel new, whether you're like actually sick or hungover or whatever. I just think the mouthfeel on lemon lime is a bit quicker. It doesn't linger as badly. It doesn't feel as like sugary and filmy. And since it's like the original flavor of Gatorade, like something about it, like the Gatorade has this air of being like refreshing and hydrating, right? And I think that for something to be that, it kind of needs that crispness of a citrus base. And beyond that, when you're sick, I wouldn't go for the flavors that actually aren't flavors, but colors. Well, actually, there is a meme out there that it's like if you refer to Gatorade by the actual flavors and not the color, like you're definitely a cop. And so many of you are probably like lemon, lime, yellow Gatorade. Your voice cut off when you said what kind of jello your husband said is best for being sick. You know what's funny? I did not grow up having jello when I was sick, and I didn't realize that jello is kind of like a token simple food that like won't cause stomach upset or like the it's like one of the only things I pounded jello because I was in labor for 3 days. But to me, there really no flavor of jello exists besides cherry. I understand that might be overwhelming when you're sick and not a bland enough food. I could see orange just because of the way you might conflate something being orange with having vitamin C and helping your immune system. But when it comes to Gatorades, I have opinions. And my opinion I'm going to power rank the flavors, period, the end, just to do what you didn't ask. So that's my answer for sick. But if we were to expand the conversation, dear Beth, my inflexible, unequivocal number one, that unfortunately is a source of controversy because there are multiple of this color, would be blue Gatorade. But to me, the real blue Gatorade is not cool blue. It is, in fact, Glacier Freeze. Now, Gatorade had a subsidiary line of sorts at one point called Gatorade Frost. I will always pick Gatorade Frost above any other Gatorade. Gatorade Frost is important because Frost flavors have less of a fruit essence and it's more about being crisp and thirst quenching. Cool Blue is not designed for peak thirst. I don't find it to be quenching or refreshing. There's something about Glacier Freeze that maybe it's just the word freeze, maybe it's the concept of Gatorade Frost, but like if cold were a beverage and you're drinking a cold Glacier Freeze, that's Glacier Freeze. If you want something cold and like refreshing, it's so good. I'll also F with a Riptide Rush, but that's harder to find. That's a purple one. So I just firmly believe a Gatorade Frost flavor like Glacier Freeze, if you're really thirsty, that is something you can chug and not feel sick. I don't think you can chug Cool Blue and not feel sick. It's designed to taste good in small sips, which it does. It does. But I gather the Frost line was engineered to be more refreshing than regular Gatorade, which is why they have like a slightly more diluted thinner consistency. So first, yeah, when I'm sick is lemon lime, but in general, I would say I'm always reaching for a Glacier Freeze. And I just did want to specify why that is different than a Cool Blue, because most people, when they think of blue Gatorade, they are thinking of Cool Blue. And most places sell Cool Blue more than they do Glacier Freeze. But the light blue one is elite in terms of thirst quenching, in my opinion. I think second overall, I still would pick a lemon lime. It's the original flavor. It's crisp. It's reliable. It's never disappointing. It's good for an empty stomach. It's good for a hangover. It feels right in the same way that it's about to cure you, even if it won't really, because you just associate it with curing you. Kind of like how when you have a stomach ache, you want flat Coca-Cola or Sprite. Even though we did debunk that on this, that I did an episode last year. It's one of my favorites. I feel like it flew under the radar. Called "This Episode is Sick," about sick day nostalgia. And that's also when I talked about Wagyu U, something I still actively do, a program. I'd say third is fruit punch for me. It's very classic. It tastes like childhood. And I will say, if you are specifically exercising, if you're like, I don't think red hits as hard if you're like dehydrated, hungover, or just generally like really thirsty or it's like hot out. I think it's a little thick, but I think that red can slap if you are exercising. Like if you're sitting on a couch, you'll become distracted from the film you're watching by the film on your teeth from a fruit punch Gatorade. But if you are working out at the gym, it passes right through you in a way that feels right. And for number four, I'm gonna throw in a wild card. I know this won't be popular. I know it won't, but it's really good and really underrated and cannot be found everywhere. And that is cucumber lime Gatorade. Shit's refreshing. This flavor is for adults only, but not in the way that like is the weird gross room in the back of the Blockbuster. It's for a more refined palate. It's the spa water of a CVS, but it also has kind of controversial origins. There was a semi-controversial like campaign product launch Gatorade did in like 2012 called Flavors from Home. And sometimes says, depending on the bottle, limon pepina. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I didn't take Spanish and it haunts me every day. Cucumber, lime, and watermelon citrus were created as like a Flavors from Home line and marketed to Hispanic consumers. What a lot of people didn't like is this marketing strategy that felt like patronizing and stereotyping, like the idea that lime and cucumber flavors would make Latino consumers think of home. And I remember looking this up because it became one of my favorite Gatorade flavors in the early 2010s. But I would go to Virginia and like I wouldn't be able to find it or people hadn't heard of it. And I was like, why is this everywhere in Chicago? And one of the great things about Chicago is it has a very substantial Hispanic population. I think it was one of the targeted markets for this rollout. And despite what many think is the questionable marketing premise, it developed a cult following and actually ended up like staying on shelves and now can be found in most markets. So, fun backstory about cucumber lime Gatorade. But despite said cult following, I still think it's kind of slept on, and I highly recommend you give it a try. That's not one I chug at all. That's a sipper. And yeah, number five is where I put Cool Blue, my track five. It's vulnerable. No, it's most people's favorite. It's a real Instacart headache for me that people don't understand that there's two different kinds of blue Gatorade. And yeah, I can't diss that blue isn't a flavor uh because Glacier Freeze isn't. And I actually tend to be partial to those types of drinks because I have an affinity for things that are branded with ice because they feel refreshing. I'm a marketer's dream when it comes to water because I like drinks cold, and that has absolutely nothing to do with their branding. But if it's something does have kind of an Arctic mountainous branding, I'm in. Or Fiji. Fiji's branding is just gorgeous, and I want to be drinking the bottle because the aesthetics really soothe me in a way that maybe its lukewarm nature at the airport and a Starbucks won't. Aquafina has kind of a more pathetic mountain. That brand Icelandic, the bottle literally looks like ice, and I find the label to be tempting in ways that like a smart water isn't, for example. Ice Mountain, lower tier water. It's the Arrowhead of the Midwest. No, Arrowhead also has mountains on it. These are the things I identify with. I'm not drawn to an Essentia. I'm not drawn to a Pure Life. I'm not drawn to a Smart Water, a Dasani. Liquid Death, like why though? And I take that back if they ever do an advertise on this podcast. I actually don't hate water in a can. It's just not my first choice. Like, isn't the whole point of a water bottle being able to put the top back on it? Do you remember when Caroline Manzo's sons tried to make Blackwater happen? Is that still around? Oh, and Evian, obviously. Evian's probably the most elite. So yeah, I'm a sucker for Arctic branding because I feel so strongly about cold beverages. But yeah, I also do think that I tend to be drawn to the flavors of things that aren't actual flavors because what the fuck is Pacific Cooler? But it's the best Capri Sun, has been since '88. I mean, nothing makes you feel like Tiffany with an I from California Dreams, like Pacific Cooler. The guy at the surfboard, are you kidding me? Is it still around? Or even High C. Like I was pretty partial to Ecto Cooler. What's Ecto? Is that in my head it's isn't it funny what you assume things are and you probably never really looked it up and you just hold on to that truth. But so Ecto Cooler had like a green glob guy on the front and I feel like it's related to Ghostbusters, right? Is that guy's name Ecto? Was Ecto Cooler green though? I always thought it was kind of a vitamin C orangey flavor. The base notes of High C are typically orange in the same way that Capri Sun's base notes to me are like a pear white grape. It's a softer finish than a High C. You know what I was thinking of when I went to see the Backstreet Boys? Did I say this already? I just think this is cute in terms of how young we were. So when we first got the Backstreet Boys album, my friend crew and I'd ride bikes with around the neighborhood that are still my close friends today. We got the album, and one of our favorite songs was Get Down and Move It All Around. And it's like, you're the one for me, you're my ecstasy. I remember like our dance move to that was we'd create an X and then do a C with our hands. Like, you're my extra C. We didn't know what ecstasy was. Like, I didn't know that was a word. And in that context, it's not even a drug. It's like in the ecstatic form. But we just didn't know that big of a word. And I think that we thought they were saying, you're the one for me, you're my extra C. Because I feel like there was a vitamin C commercial on at the time or something involving extra C. Maybe it was Sunny D, where we thought like, it was the relationship was like extra nourishing. I just think that's cute and it makes me laugh. And I remember how scandalous it felt singing, Am I sexual? That was like, oh, why am I saying that? Oh, I like things that aren't straightforward in the name. Then come all the other flavors. I mean, like if I have to, I'll get down with like a strawberry or whatever. Grape and orange, like flavor ices or icy pops or whatever you call the terrible, not T-E-R, but Tear, terrible popsicles you buy in bulk, almost exclusively for like beach vacation rentals or like soccer teams. To me, orange and grape don't exist. Orange and grape are always the last men standing. I am willing to cut the sides of my mouth on the sharp, sharp plastic of an ice pop and be cold sore presenting for days to come while they heal for pink, for blue, even for lime, but I won't do it for an orange or a grape. I'm actually a big fan as an adult of a Pedialyte pop. But yeah, in my house, there's always spare orange and grapes loitering in the freezer. And then lastly comes Gatorade Zero because it's the baked chicken with the side of veggies of Gatorade. There's stuff that's sugar free that tastes good, and I know it's better for you to not have as much sugar, but I do think sometimes when you need a Gatorade, you also like need the sugar. I think that also when I was like hungover and in peak diet culture, I would get Gatorade Zero as a means to hydrate me after a long night, and it was just like so unsatisfying and would make me sicker that I just have a negative association with it. To each their own. If you want to effectively drink the cottage cheese of electrolytes, go for it, but not my jam. And the last thing I will say, you guys, and I've said it once and I'll say it again, and everyone always tells me it's retro or they haven't seen one in a while or they're confused by it. But when I tell you it's the thing I drink the most, I just Instacarted 2 cases from Costco. I drink it constantly. If you want pizzazz, if you want a powerful flavor that satisfies, that doesn't give you a tummy ache, that actually has zero sugar but doesn't taste like a zero sugar beverage, look no further than a Propel. And I know I say that weird apparently, but people laugh at my Propels, but I like drink 3 a day. And I just want to say here and now that if there is ever a recall or something that comes out about Propel and being recalled or having carcinogenic properties or whatever it may be, if we later in life, if we find out Propel is akin to some other vice we should have known better than to consume, just consider this podcast over. Consider me dead because I drink so much Propel. Bury me in satin, lay me down in a bed of roses. Death by Propel is probably where my future is being propelled to by drinking so much Propel. Propel? I get confused. It's so good. People sleep on it. Propel rocks. It has no sugar, and you feel like you're drinking a bottle of water, but it's not water. And if I don't have like a liquid IV with me or something to put in a plain bottle of water, if I can find a Propel, whew, I am so relieved. I can chug Propel. It is so good. And I don't know why more people don't drink it because it's so commonplace to me. Anyway, that's my formal pitch. I hope that wasn't too controversial. But thank you for asking because what I love about the best is you'll ask me a question that I'm like, Jello when you're sick, Gatorade when you're sick, huh? But then once I get to talking, I'm like, oh, I actually feel really passionately about this, and you know me better than I know myself. Do you guys remember All Sports though? I almost ranked Fruit Punch higher because I have a memory of going to a Water Country USA after on the last day of school with my friend Elise, and we stopped at a gas station on the way home, and I was like so tired and so thirsty, as water parks do, wear one out, and I got an ice cold red All Sport. I can still picture it in the cup holder of their Suburban and me thinking, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever had. I think I just might have been really thirsty, but all sports were really good and insanely sugary. And mouth feel, that was a mouth grope. Like that was too much sugar. That was too much film. You could never chug that in a sitting. I'm sorry about the mouth grope. I didn't, I really loved an all sport at the time. But the 90s were a bonanza of highly sugary beverages from your Mondos or Squeeze Its. But whenever I talk about nostalgic foods, I think about string things a lot because I'm such a fan of a fruit roll up, fruit by the foot. Also, I recently went on a boat with a group of Beths, shout out, in Chicago, and somebody made like a candy salad. It had your usual suspects, your sour bright crawlers, your sour belts, your nerds gummy clusters, so on and so forth for like sour candy, but they also interspersed gushers. And when I tell you what a delight that was and what a compliment it was to the sour treats, I've never experienced a candy salad with rogue gushers. Gushers are just such a luxury item to me. They're just like the A tier of what a parent could pack in a lunchbox back in the day. Most of us had parents that felt that Welch's was like the sensible choice for a fruit snack. Occasionally we get a Scooby, which did have that opaque blue, which was important and you would never trade. But kids who got gushers were usually the type of kids that also had like trampolines in their backyard and like top tier snacks in their home, and you'd like want to befriend them. And I just remember being like so envious of gushers at lunch and the rare occasion somebody would give you one, or the tragedy that was somebody biting it in half and giving you half. And I'm like, the whole point is the gush. Get a life. I could go into a whole other tangent about elite lunchbox items. Another question just caught my eye that is just like, God, that's a really good question. But I guess it doesn't need a long answer. So let's go for a fourth.
Hi, Kate. A very random question for you, but I was just pondering Twilight, as one does, and thinking about like the rise in virtual homeschooling, and I was like, I wonder if Edward like would have really benefited from virtual homeschooling. Like, do you think, so lots of questions here. One, do you think that Edward could have done Zoom school and that like would have been sufficient and they could have like pretended he was 16 every time they had to like go restart their lives, and then he could like just fly through school and not have to read everybody's thoughts and be like bombarded by them. Do you think that like conversely, the technology we have today and like facial recognition would have actually like foiled all of their plans to restart again every like, I don't know, 10 years? Just lots of pondering about technology and the colons in 2025. Would love your thoughts. Have a good one.
Oh, oh my gosh, this is a question I should have begun with because it's so good. And I didn't even hear the second half of your voicemail because this would literally solve almost all of the Cullen's logistical, social, and like low key immortal problems. Because big issue, the sun. Edward can't go in the sun. This creates a huge problem. Even if you're in a climate that's predominantly cloudy, the sun was going to shine through on occasion. Or you're on a trip to see the Volturi and you go out in the town square. Like you got to work around some of these things that make you obviously not human. Now, to this day and age, am I usually sporting a level of Lumi glotion to pass as a Cullen? Sure, sure. But I think that like a man glittering in such a way, maybe it's transfixing enough that you wouldn't really overthink it. But yeah, homeschooling certainly would help the fact that these high school kids can't go out in the sun. It would solve the age inconsistency problem with having to pretend to be age appropriate for their age grade level because you mentioned they probably leave every 10 years, but really it's like every four, right? Like, well, are they scattered in different grades? No, because they don't pretend to be blood siblings, but like adopted or something, right? I forget. Yeah, Edward could graduate. Edward could be in whatever grade he wanted, homeschool, hiding out. It would be a matriculation station. You need him to be in a grade, you name it, they can do it. Yeah, it would solve attendance issues, not only the sunny days problem, but also the vampire emergencies, the hunting trips, the I need to, avoid my new girlfriend, now ex-girlfriend, because I'm so in love with and attracted to her. And by that I mean I want to murder her in cold blood. Like that, it would solve that type of absence. I also one of Edward's problems is the mind reading. Like it kind of drives him crazy in a way I would imagine like tinnitus does. He's bombarded by the roller coaster of adolescent thoughts day in and day out. And I don't know how he would even focus on learning or if the thing they were looking at in that microscope was an anaphase. I think that like yeah, hearing Jessica Stanley's thoughts alone would drive one crazy. Bella, I don't know if there's a lot going on in there. All she talks about, all she thinks about is Edward. And I did always wish that she was more of a dynamic character, not such a empty female as Vessel, because it makes you question why Edward's like so in love with and obsessed with her. But then you realize, oh, he kind of just like wants to control her and have possession of her. And maybe the reason she likes her is because she's kind of a vessel that can be projected upon. And maybe that's why we all felt like a Bella underdog because like she wasn't really anything. So we all kind of could fit into that type of character and pretend that we too could be overwhelmingly loved despite feeling plain. Not speaking from experience, just like a hypothetical. But yeah, to not take too long answering this question, that would have solved all their problems. That makes a ton of sense. And while, yeah, maybe it would be weird to have these perennially young kids in high school, homeschool that don't leave the house much during the day, I don't know. People have had weirder neighbors. The weirdest thing for me is how much glass they have in their house that anybody could look in while they're tossing their sibling's latest girlfriend into a credenza. Like we're vampires. Let's get some tinting up in here. But yeah, I think that like what would have made more sense too is probably just to go to college because they could all pass as college aged or post college aged. And I think they could at least get like a solid, yeah, more like 10, 15 years if they did like a full high school cycle, full college, and like a little, yeah, young adult, and then up and left and moved again. But yeah, I don't think today you could pull that off. I mean, even Taylor Swift has facial recognition technology at the Eras Tour. They have to fly on planes, don't they? I mean, touchless ID. I don't have a real ID yet. Do you guys? That's a lot of work. I feel like they're going to drop it. And I'm not convinced they're not going to drop it because, like, why? Yeah, I just think that I think in general you kind of have to transcend reality for immortality to make any sense in a modern governmental identification system or really just any sort of social context without seeming really suspicious. But the thing about being a vampire is the issue is not that people are going to find out you're a vampire. It's they're going to see you on a hike holding and taking a bite of a live deer in the forest like it's a corn on the cob, you know? Like even if I saw that, my mind wouldn't go to vampire. I'd probably just assume you were like a serial killer or something with some sort of like weird animal fetish that would haunt me for the rest of my days. The crazier shit would be to see a boy phase into a wolf midair. I mean, that was wild. Also, my heart sinks every time I think of Leah Clearwater, so I'm not even going to go there. Especially once I realized what like a Mormon allegory it all is and what Leah Clearwater, it's just it's so much. It's too much. That was a Patreon episode, parallels between the Twilight Saga and Mormonism, given Stephanie Meyer is Mormon, even though she says that it has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with it because there is an element of like the writer's worldview and how they understand things that shows up in their work, I think. And so much of it from Waiting Till Marriage, from the high key pro life angle of like this baby is killing Bella from the inside out, but she keeps it against all odds, to Waiting Till Marriage, to like the overstating of like super hot sex after marriage, like a youth pastor might overemphasize. So you're more inclined to wait, but super unrealistic, like the way Edward ravaged her on that Brazilian island. That that's a little touch and go for me. But anyway, great question. Thank you for like all of you for understanding me, for challenging me, for helping me grow and learn. And I may not always get it right, but I hope that I, at the very least, get it so wrong that it's somewhat entertaining to listen to. This was really fun for me. This was great. Sometimes I need something so deeply unserious to give me a little bit of pep in my step, especially when I've reached my propel limit for the day. All right, you guys. The Katelilah number is hold on. It's 775 Hey Beth, I think. I think it's a Vegas phone number. It's the Vegas Cheesecake Factory phone number. Yeah, it's 775 Hey Beth. You can text or leave a voicemail. If this is on video, I don't think AllModern enough. There's a Beth that works at AllModern, and these are the Enora bookcases. I'm obsessed with them, and it kind of gave me this vibe of having a Watch What Happens live clubhouse of sorts. I'm obsessed. They also I have a lovely lamp in here, a mirror, and a nightstand that you guys can't see, but AllModern really helped me out with my office when I was trying to move to video in ways that I still haven't fully because it's still a lot for me. But this episode was fully on video. If you want to go to YouTube. Anyway, you guys, I'm going to remember to do Katelilah's more often going forward. I didn't know if you guys still liked him. There's always so much going on that we could be talking about. But when I asked you on Insta what we should talk about, and several of you brought it up, it made me happy because these are like some of my favorite episodes to do. So thank you for calling in, for caring. And yeah, patreon.com/bethereinfive to hear me yell about my frustration with unknown number. Maybe for my second bonus episode, I'll do like an overflow because there's a few more questions I want to answer. And yeah, rate, review, 5 stars, follow, subscribe, like all the things. It's so helpful for me as an independent show. I don't get like featured because I don't have like a network affiliation. So it's a bit hard for me to get above the radar, especially with episode content like this. Front page of Apple. Do you want to power rank mall chain restaurants? Like honestly, yeah, I feel like this is the type of stuff I want to be talking about in these times. And I thank you for your questions and for the privilege of your time. I'll catch you next week. I'll be a year older, none the wiser. As always, let me know your thoughts, and I'll let you know mine. I'll be there in 5, I swear.